You're listening to Russia's Week in Review on the EIB Network.
Now, I'm sure a lot of you people are going to disagree with me on this, but I actually think that I picked a pretty good week to be gone last week. I mean, I was in the middle of it, too, just like you were, and I had some initial reactions, especially when that anonymous New York Times piece came out. Now, by the way, I don't think anybody but somebody at the New York Times wrote that. I don't think there is somebody in the White House or in the administration who wrote that thing. I think it's all made up. But we'll get to that in a minute. As I look back on it, there wasn't any real news during the week last week. There's just a bunch more ginned up hysteria from the media and from the American left, the Democrat Party, who want you to focus on what it is that upsets them. They remain obsessed with changing your mind. They remain obsessed with being able to bend, shape, flake, and form public opinion. You know what? They're not able to anymore. And this, as much as anything, I don't mean to denigrate their hatred for Trump because that's as strong and as high as ever, but their desire to prove to themselves that they can still bend and shape public opinion is what's driving a lot of this hysteria. And they are readily recognizing that they can't. And it's new territory for them. And so they're getting even more hysterical as each day comes and goes. And you watch this, and you have the Woodward book out there, and Bob Woodward's advising everybody that we need to really get serious about examining the psychology and the mental fitness of Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you, it's just the exact opposite. If anybody is close to a breakdown, it's people in the media and people on the left. If there's anybody in desperate need of some psychological help, it's those people, not Donald Trump. And not you and me. Greetings. Great to be back. Great to have you here. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.us. Man, there were lots of things happening last week that I wish I had been here to discuss. But I am here now, and we're going to go back, and we're going to review as many of the things from the past week or 10 days that I want to offer my 2 cents on. Just run down the list of things just to give you an idea of what's coming up. That funeral for Senator McCain. I know I'm going to be very, 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 very careful here. But that was a presidential funeral, which is fine except for one thing. John McCain was never president. He tried twice. He lost twice. He never became president. So why? Who authorized a presidential funeral for Senator John McCain? Now, something that I think may not be widely known, that every living president is required to plan his funeral, to lay it all out, to make it known to government officials, because presidential funerals are, if ex-presidents want them, big deals. I don't know how many of you remember the funeral for Ronaldus Magnus, but it was almost an identical funeral to that of John F. Kennedy, complete with the caissons walking and marching through Washington with that, never forget that eerie drum beat that accompanies the caisson. Reagan had it. It was big, and the drive-bys were stunned at how big it was. The drive-bys, the media, the left, stunned at how many people came out for it, not just in Washington, all over the country. So when Senator Kennedy died, they tried the same thing. They didn't do a funeral that was the size of McCain's, however. But they attempted to do a presidential funeral in terms of the procession through Washington, and they were stunned at how few people showed up to watch it. I'm not talking about what went on inside churches. I'm talking about the casket parading down streets in Washington, D.C. So there really isn't a lot of precedent for a United States senator getting a presidential funeral. Now, don't infer anything from this. Just sharing with you some observations. Then, when I saw the eulogies. I mean, I probably, like a lot of people, say, whoa, what is this? See, my idea of a funeral, and I don't mean to be imposing this on anyone else, but my idea I happen to believe that funerals are for the living, but to the extent that they are for the deceased, the purpose is to pray for the salvation of the soul of the deceased. And for that, there is a focus on God with an assist from men and women of the cloth, whose profession and job it is to assist in this ceremony to give comfort to the family of the deceased. I have to tell you that I was, well, I was going to say I was taken aback, but I'm not. I really wasn't. I was not surprised that at a funeral for a deceased senator, the focus would be the hatred for Donald Trump. I was disappointed to see it, but I wasn't surprised. I began to ask what kind of anger or bitterness must have been festering for however many months or years to produce that funeral. And by the way, when I then saw it, I'm going to get a big leap here, but when that anonymous New York Times op-ed was published, supposedly by some ranking senior advisor in the Trump administration, I saw at the end of that veneration for Senator McCain. I once again said, whoa. The two, to me, seem to be connected. Don't know that they are. Wild guess, using my intelligence guided by experience. But of all the things and of all the people who could have been venerated in that anonymous op-ed in the New York Times, for whoever wrote it to say, gee, couldn't we have had somebody like Senator McCain? Senator McCain tried twice, and Senator McCain lost. He was defeated twice. Now, there are a lot of McCain acolytes scattered throughout the Washington establishment, both Republican and Democrat, and in the media, which I know is redundant to talk about media and the Democrats. But I then began to wonder, is this New York Times op-ed part of the plan of the McCain funeral? And I said, it could be. It could be. And it could also be the New York Times deciding to get in on whatever action they thought was going to happen because of the Bob Woodward book, Bob Woodward writing for the Washington Post. There is a rivalry between the Times and the Post. But in this day, they are unified in their gigantic effort to get rid of Donald Trump. But if anybody is making fools of themselves, it's them. And it's paramountly obvious they don't realize it. If anybody is making themselves look like they are unqualified for leadership, for unqualified for positions of power and influence, it is them. They have gone beyond their own ability to cope now. And I'm telling you, it is rooted in the reality that they haven't been able to make happen what they have in their minds always believed they've had the power to make happen. If they've wanted to get rid of a Republican, it's been pretty easy over the years. Only a couple of exceptions Republicans targeted who have survived. Trump tops the list. They've tried every trick in their book. They've tried lying, anonymous sources, making things up. The frustration that they are feeling must be incredible. It must be, and we know it is, driving them literally insane and batty. And so now they are grasping in desperate spasms for anything they believe will make you see Donald Trump the way they do. Imagine they have been waiting, they have been praying, they've been hoping that Robert Mueller is going to learn whatever it is that'll send Donald Trump to jail. Immediately from the White House, don't pass go, don't collect $200, right from the Oval Office to prison. They realize now that Mueller doesn't have diddly squat. He's got nothing. There was not a crime even specified for Mueller to find or to investigate. His investigation has been the search of a crime. They haven't found one. They still haven't found one. They've tried. They've made things up. It's got to be driving them crazy. So they're trotting out all of their old traditions, techniques, and in some cases, players. And by that, I mean Woodward. Bob Woodward stopped having any weight with me after he claimed that William Casey, who was the CIA director for Ronald Reagan, Casey was comatose, in a bed, in hospital, close to death. Woodward claims that he woke up and told him things about Iran-Contra. Ever since that, and probably, being honest, prior to that, Woodward, of course, part of Woodward-Bernstein Watergate, Bob Woodward has always carried a gigantic question mark with me. I mean, once you're willing to invent people in a coma waking up to talk to you, I don't think there's too much you won't do. And when the primary name of all of your sources is anonymous, and when you have people who you're writing about in the White House now coming out and saying, that didn't happen, I didn't say that, I didn't do that, Mad Dog Mattis, John Kelly, all denying what Woodward had said, I realize that that might be the expected thing. But look, if there were this gigantic effort inside the White House to get rid of Donald Trump, I think they would have succeeded. They would have had a little bit more success than they have up till now. You know this? How many of you are aware of the controversy happened at the Women's U.S. Open tennis tournament over the weekend with Serena Williams and the new wonderkind Naomi Osaka? Are you aware that the controversy in that final is an exact microcosm for the Washington, D.C. establishment and Donald Trump? It is, folks, it is eerie. And I, of course, will explain it. If you're puzzled and scratching your head, what in the heck can they two have in common? It's all identical. You have an outsider, a young, well, in this case, young. You have an outsider. You have an establishment winner. Expected to win every time, a double dose of advantage. She is a minority. She's an African-American woman. She was supposed to win. Just like Hillary Clinton was supposed to win. This Osaka babe, nothing more than fodder. Nothing more than a stand-in. Nothing more than the latest fall guy. Except everything went wrong. The outsider comes in and smokes Serena Williams, smokes the establishment, and she melts down identically to the way the Washington establishment and the media have melted down over Donald Trump. The establishment in New York, the tennis elites circling the wagons around Serena Williams and blaming the official, blaming the referee, just as the Washington establishment blames the Russians, or blames the elections, or blames the Electoral College, or blames whatever they blame for Donald Trump. It's uncanny, folks. So we'll spend a little time. I'll be more specific as that unfolds. The circus of the Kavanaugh hearings for his Supreme Court nomination, more and more, the left being who they are, is just embarrassing. I must tell you, I look at this. You know, it's a different perspective, too. I'm out all week, but I'm, for most of the time last week, I'm paying attention. And when I don't have to consume that stuff in ways to be able to regurgitate it and comment on it, when I'm just consuming it here, just reading it, but not doing anything else with it, I look at it even more so than I do when I'm doing show prep. Look, how can anybody, like at that Kavanaugh hearing, how can anybody who has a right mind, how can anybody with any kind of decency and common sense even think about voting for any of the people that those Democrats, Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, are appealing to? How can anybody in their right minds throughout this entire country vote for those people? I know they do. Don't misunderstand. I just refuse to believe that our country has become a majority of the genuine deranged that are represented by the people in the confirmation hearing room and the Democrats who are trying to appeal to them. I don't know if you saw it or not. There's a photo. A woman. I realize this is lunchtime in 2 of the time zones in this country, and arguably maybe 3 if you want to include brunch. There is a woman, picture of a woman, bleeding, menstrually. Not a small amount. The picture is taken, it's in that room, and it is all about trying to exemplify the danger that Kavanaugh poses to women who want abortions. It's sick. We are surrounded, infiltrated by genuine sickness. Physical, mental. And I'll tell you, folks, I'm really grateful, thankful the opportunity I have to come here and talk about it every day, because that's one way of dealing with it, having an outlet. Because, man, some of this stuff is just... It ought to be representative of 2 to 5% of the people of this country in their thinking, but it's larger than that. But they're not the majority yet. Look, I got to take a break. We're up against it on time. Hang tough, because we'll be back before you know it.
Rush Limbaugh, helping make this one of America's great radio stations. You're listening to the EIB Network.
No, don't get confused here. What I'm saying is, folks, the New York Times op-ed, that piece by Anonymous, whoever wrote that, and the Bob Woodward book, they're nothing new at all. In fact, you could make the case. Now, the Woodward book has been in the planning stages for a long time. He's been working on it a long time, so it's not... The strategy for the Woodward book is not something that just popped up in the past couple of weeks. But regardless, the New York Times op-ed, which is there to buck it up, to get in on the action, and to get the Woodward book shown in the New York Times in another publication to make it look like this anti-Trump stuff is all over the place. The Trump is dangerous stuff is all over the place. I would suggest to you this is just the media and the Washington establishment giving up on any idea that the special counsel is going to come up with anything to get rid of Trump. I don't think there's anything arguable about this. And the idea here... Oh, you remember Chuck Todd? By the way, this is not Chuck Todd, the Friday. The last week I was here, I forget how many days ago, Chuck Todd promised that Mueller was going to have this gigantic bombshell on Friday. Chuck advising everybody to go to work on Friday. This is of the Labor Day weekend. Don't take the day off. Mueller is going to have a bomb. There was nothing. So I think they're resorting here to panic that what they've all believed and relied on, there's no there. So now, that's what these attacks on Trump, what I mean, are nothing new.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Welcome back, my friends. You're tuned to the most listened to radio talk show in America. And I, your beloved host, a household name in all 4 corners of the world. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Speaking of tennis, you must get crazy. The climate change people find themselves in the same circumstance that the left is finding itself in with Trump. People just don't care. You look at surveys of issues people care about. Climate change, way, way, way down near the bottom. They just don't care. And it's frustrating because the drive-bys have put everything they've got into that. And it really does. All of this with Trump, I mean, it's much more involved in this, but I'll tell you, one of the primary things motivating the New York Times, Bob Woodward, all these people in the media is their almost incalculable frustration over being unable to alter public opinion on Donald Trump. Do not doubt me on this. It's something that everybody in the drive-by individually is frustrated by and collectively. So I have here a story from the Daily Telegraph in the UK. Climate horror exposed as Swiss millionaire loses evening at tennis game. This is actually a story where the New York Times is being made fun of. The Daily Telegraph. According to the New York Times, John Millman of Australia did not defeat Roger Federer at the U.S. Open. No, Federer was beaten by climate change. Federer, who is ranked number 2, seemed to struggle all night in the heat and humidity at Arthur Ashe Stadium, losing in a fourth-round upset to John Millman, an Australian ranked at 55th in the world. Federer said, yeah, man, it was hot. It was just one of those nights. I guess I felt I couldn't get air. There was no circulation at all. To some, the comments by Federer, 37, may sound like sour grapes, but they also underscore a growing problem: increasing nighttime temperatures. Under climate change, overall temperatures are rising. 2018 on track to be the 4th warmest year on record, but the warming is not happening. I'm not making this up. The New York Times actually blamed climate change for Federer's defeat. See, Federer is part of the tennis elite. And the tennis elite is the same as the Washington-New York media corridor elite. The same as the Washington establishment elite. And these challengers are a bunch of upstart outsiders who were just there to provide opposition, much like the Washington Generals did, versus the Harlem Globetrotters. And now their heroes are losing, and they can't handle it. Now, this business with Serena Williams, I'm not making this up. The comparisons between Serena Williams and Hillary Clinton and Naomi Osaka and Donald Trump are just stunning if you stop to think about it, and if you know what happened. I don't know how many of you paid any attention to what happened in the U.S. Open, but Serena Williams melted down. She got swamped. She lost in 2 sets. She was never in the match. She got skunked by a 20-year-old upstart who, interestingly, is also a minority female. She's Japanese, spent some time growing up in America, but her heroine, her whole life has been Serena Williams, and her dream was to play in the U.S. Open Finals against Serena Williams, and it happened on Saturday, and she beat Serena Williams, and they made her cry. They made her feel like excrement for daring to beat Serena Williams. Serena Williams was left to complain that the judges were being unfair, the referees were unfair. She threw her racket in disgust after losing a point, started shouting that she's never cheated, that she's honest, that she's got a daughter now, she's trying to be an excellent role model, demanding that the referee owe her an apology. And the tennis elite circling the wagons around her thinking the referee blew it. They had no problem booing the winner at the U.S. Open. They booed the winner. I'm telling you, folks, the comparisons are many. That U.S. Open women's tennis final, a microcosm for how Trump is treated by the elites in Washington. Same thing. How all of us are treated, in fact. Expected to lose. Expected to be second or third class. Supposed to apologize for winning and then reject the victory and give it back. Make allegations that our victory was tainted by cheating that benefited us. A lot of people are saying, well, Rush, you're missing the point on this. It's because of race. It's not race, because Naomi Osaka, I think, is got some. I know she's what Haitian. Did somebody say Haitian? Somebody said Haitian. So she is a woman of color as well. She's Japanese, Haitian. It's not race, folks. This is elitism. This is pure we're better than you. We are in an upper class and you're not. That's what this is. Now, Serena Williams is one of the chosen beneficiaries of the elite's affection because she does check off all the boxes. But they're also legitimately impressed with her talent. But that's not the primary thing. I just don't think race is the primary predominant factor here in what happened. I think the expectation that she is chosen, she is the perennial representative of leaders and of winners, and that this defeat of hers was a personal affront to the elites, not just to her. How dare that other girl win? They made that other girl feel like crap. When she was given the trophy, when she was awarded the trophy, she was in tears, and she did apologize. She apologized for causing all of this that upset Serena Williams. And Serena Williams sat there and nodded as though that's exactly how this young upstart ought to behave. I don't doubt there's a lot of sympathy for Serena Williams because of her race, but this is elitism, folks. It's more about being an accepted insider and losing to some exciting new outsider that drove them nuts. Here is at the awards ceremony. Let's just tell you about this, because I'm telling you that the similarities are striking. At the awards ceremony, the winner, 20-year-old winner, Naomi Osaka, covered her face with her visor and cried. The crowd booed her. The president, the chairman of the United States Tennis Association, a woman named Katrina Adams, opened the awards ceremony by criticizing the winner and speaking longingly of the loser. The chairman and president of the USTA actually said, while the winner is there holding her trophy, perhaps it's not the finish we were looking for today, but Serena, you are a champion of all champions. I'm sorry, perhaps this is not the finish we were looking for today, but Hillary, you are the women of all women. You're the champion of all champions. And then the president of the United States Tennis Association turned and addressed the crowd and said, this mama, meaning Serena Williams, this mama is a role model and respected by all. This role model had just embarrassed herself with numerous meltdowns, demanding apologies, accusing the referee of cheating her, not being fair, and all this. It's classic. It's just, there are no manners anywhere. There is not a single institution, it seems, that we can turn to and rely on for just common decency. And I'll tell you why. It's because every damn thing in life that the left has touched has been politicized by its ideology, liberalism. How dare they? This young woman, this was her dream, to play against the best and win, and she wanted the respect and admiration of Serena Williams. How many of you can relate to this? In whatever you've chosen to do in your life? I sure can. I can relate to this in all kinds of ways, by the way. Perhaps it's not the finish we were looking for today, but Serena, you are a champion of all champions. This mama is a role model and respected by all. They were sad. They didn't get the result they wanted, and they let the winner know it. And she's standing there crying, and she ends up apologizing for winning. Meanwhile, Serena Williams out there shouting, I don't cheat to win, I'd rather lose. You stole a point from me. The winner, Osaka, Naomi Osaka, accepted her trophy while crying. She never smiled. When asked if it was true that it was her childhood dream to play against Serena Williams, she sidestepped the question, even though she had answered it previously. She said, you know what, the winner said, I'm sorry. I know that everyone was cheering for her, and I'm sorry it had to end like this. And the New York tennis elite and the USTA, yes, you ought to be sorry. You damn well ought to be sorry. Who do you think you are beating our beloved Serena Williams? You ought to be sorry. They made her feel like 2 inches tall. And then they felt great about themselves afterward. And then the winner turns to Serena Williams, who's made a spectacle of herself all afternoon, saying, I'm really grateful I was able to play with you. Thank you. She bowed her head, and Williams just stood there and nodded as though, yep, you damn well ought to be bowing your head to me. I can't believe that the United States Tennis Association actually participated and made that ceremony the way it was, but I'm telling you, it's a microcosm for what's going on in Washington. It's a microcosm for the way you, who are blue-collar, middle-class, upper-middle-class, middle America, the way you're all looked at, the way Donald Trump is looked at. The signs are everywhere. And again, I fall back. I don't know how many people watch this thing. I didn't. I didn't watch this. I've never watched this stuff. I'm telling you this because I heard about it, and I went up and I got tapes, and I watched replays of it. I was stunned. And then it hit me how overwhelmingly identical it is to the same elitist, arrogant, condescending attitude toward everybody else, and they can't do a damn thing right running their own lives or running this country. And yet they have this arrogant belief that only they are qualified, that only they know what to do. There was a Los Angeles Times column written by some guy named Michael Hiltzik 2 or 3 years ago. He said, Donald Trump is out of his mind if he thinks the U.S. economy can exceed a 3% growth rate. He's literally out of his mind. Well, what were you now, 4.2%? Barack Hussein Obama, who single-handedly set about trying to destroy, is now out there trying to claim credit for what Donald Trump has done? And the same elites are applauding Obama, even though he spied on them, even though he was disdainful of them. Anyway, a little long here. Got to take a break. I will come back and get started on the phones, so sit tight. Back before you know it.
Rush Limbaugh, the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving on the EIB network.
Before we get to the phones, let me share with you the Washington Post treatment of the shameful defeat of Serena Williams by this upstart, Naomi Osaka. Headline, at U.S. Open, power of Serena Williams and Naomi Osaka is overshadowed by an umpire's power play. Yes, the Electoral College reared itself and enforced the damn rules of the game on Serena Williams. How dare the referee? In fact, grab audio soundbite 23. And I think 24. Here's Serena Williams. She's the first athlete to ever get in an argument with a referee. This was during the final itself.
I'm here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality and for all kinds of stuff. And for me to say thief and for him to take a game, it made me feel like it was a sexist remark. I mean, like how he's never took a game from a man because they said thief. For me, it blows my mind. But I'm going to continue to fight for women.
Okay, so that was a press conference afterwards. I'm here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality. What are they? They're trying to win the U.S. Open, for crying out loud. What do you think, Serena Kaepernick? Anyway, let's get 24. This is Christine Brennan. She writes for the USA Today. It used to be the Washington Post, and she's being interviewed by Poppy Harlow, the Infobabe anchorette at CNN. And the question, is it solely sexism or is it more than that? They're all talking the referee and how the referee jobbed Serena, she loses 6-2, 6-3. The referee didn't have anything to do with it. She just got beat. But see, just like Hillary, she didn't get beat. They cheated. The referee, the Russian, somebody cheated. And now the real winner is being ignored. No stories about her. Nothing. Anyway, here's Christine Brennan.
I think it is sexism. Serena is a very outspoken person. She is a champion for many. She is bigger than the game. And so there are a lot of reasons why someone might target Serena or look at her differently. Clearly, she's an African-American woman. But we are seeing, as you've alluded to, over and over again now in the last, 36 hours since this happened, men in tennis, women in tennis, the greatest names in the sport, all of them coming down on the side of Serena being correct about a double standard.
Of course they are. They're all part of it. Of course they are. Serena Williams didn't lose. You see, she got jobbed. Forget that she lost in straight sets and was never in it. The referee did it because the referee is anti-female. The referee is probably another tennis elitist who's probably shocked at the way he's been turned on by people he thought had welcomed him into the elitist club. The referee's got to have his mind blown. USTA turns on him. Serena turns on him. Now the whole tennis community. Anyway, it's such a teachable moment, and I've got to go again. But don't go anywhere else. We'll be right back. Sit tight.
Rush Limbaugh pointing the way on the EIB network.
Okay, last word on this. Serena Williams, I am here fighting for women's rights and for women's equality, for all kinds of stuff. Well, a woman won. And the same referee refereed her play as refereed Serena Williams. So where is this oppression of women? It was an all-women's match with the same referee. And a woman won. A minority woman to boot. So what women's...
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review on the EIB network.
Hey, Friday, have audio soundbite 16, 17, and 18 standing by, and maybe even number 19. And welcome back. Rush Limbaugh with half my brain tied behind my back, as always, in the interest of fairness and diversity. Diversity is our, what's the phrase? Diversity is, whatever it is, it's caca. Welcome back, folks. Great to have you. Telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. So back to the week. I was not here last week. The Bob Woodward book, well, that's actually hitting this week. And the New York Times anonymous op-ed piece. And by the way, just to review, I'm sure you have... let me ask you this. How many of you, when that thing hit, how many of you were outraged, angry, or how many of you just thought no big deal? It's just the latest in a never-ending cacophony of panic and fear from the drive-bys. How many of you thought, aha, they've admitted it. There is a silent coup. There actually is a deep state, and they're trying to sabotage the Trump presidency. And then how many of you after that got livid? Or how many of you didn't think it was that big a deal at all because it's nothing really new? I went through a gamut of emotions, and when I first saw it, I can't tell you how mad that I was. When I first saw it, I went through I was conscious in the process. Okay, let's imagine how I feel if I really believe this is true, and then I went through that. I said, okay, suppose this is made up, not true. This person who wrote this doesn't actually exist. It's actually written and composed by somebody at the New York Times, and they're claiming that it's somebody in the Trump administration, but we will never know because it isn't somebody in the Trump administration. So I considered that. Now I thought, how many people in the Trump administration don't even know the guy, but lie about their rank and their level of importance and all this? But when I saw, folks, when I knew the whole thing was rotten to the core, was when I saw, toward the end of this anonymous piece, the veneration for John McCain. when I saw that whoever wrote this said, why couldn't we have somebody more like John McCain? Why couldn't we have... And then I thought, this person has to be a millennial. It has to be a young person, because this person writes as though this is the greatest challenge to the modern American presidency ever. And it isn't. It's nothing of the sort. Trump is not. I mean, these people may be, but Trump isn't. But this person, my belief that everybody's historical perspective begins with the day they were born, and nothing before that really matters to most people. That's this old-fashioned fuddy-duddy stuff back then. What matters is what happened when I was alive and when I am alive. And then I just openly went back and considered, I think I wouldn't put it past the New York Times to have made this whole damn thing up. And to have somebody on their editorial board write this thing. But how many anonymous sources have we had from intelligence people for the past 2 years claiming to have evidence that Trump colluded with Russia? The New York Times has led that charge. There isn't anybody. They haven't named names. They haven't produced any evidence whatsoever. Mueller doesn't have it. There isn't any. And yet the New York Times is written as though it's fait accompli. It's only a matter of time. And these people are telling us it's there, it's going to come out, it's going to be revealed. The Washington Post has been doing the same thing. CNN has been following the Post and the New York Times, and nobody's got diddly squat. So why couldn't it be logical to assume they made this up? And then, like I probably had hit most people, it hit me. They're admitting it. Whoever did this, whoever's responsible for it. Then I even for a brief moment considered that it was somebody in the Trump immediate circle who did it on purpose, claimed to be a ranking official, fed this thing to the New York Times knowing that there's no way they wouldn't write it, publish it, run it, when in fact, because what it does is proves that there is a silent coup going on. It proves that there is a deep state. It proves that there is a Washington establishment trying to destroy Donald Trump. And over the past year and a half, 2 years, with any of us have discussed this, they've mocked us and they've laughed at us and they've said that's absurd, that's crazy. And yet now they come forth and admit it. What a brilliant trick the Trump people could have pulled here. So I went through every possibility. And at the end of it all, I decided there isn't anything new about it, no matter where it comes from. It's not an event. It's not a news story. It doesn't change anybody's opinion of the great work that Trump is doing as president. His approval numbers remain steady and solid no matter what they throw at him. Got to frustrate them. And then I ran across the UK Daily Mail. Now, the Daily Mail is a source. They run hot and cold. In many ways, they're very reliable for decent journalism. And then other days, they have their unabashed liberalism. But their reaction to the Daily Mail was amazingly pro-Trump. And the guy who wrote this, I think John Sopel, the BBC, North America editor, the BBC. For those of you that don't know, the BBC is the New York Times in the UK. It may be more left than that if that's possible. The BBC is so far gone, there's no saving them. And yet, the North America editor makes 3 points in this Daily Mail piece. 1, Trump is being proved right that there is a deep state trying to stop his agenda. 2, Trump is only doing what he was elected to do. And the third point is that the author of this op-ed wasn't elected. Trump was. That's another thing that the arrogance behind these people. They weren't elected. They couldn't get elected if they tried. The guy they venerate, John McCain, he tried twice. He didn't win. If you missed my comments in the first hour on the McCain funeral, please consult rushlimbaugh.com later today. I don't want to be repetitive because there's so much to discuss here. But that was mind-blowing to me, too. So now we have the realization here by many that this thing is backfired. And then I started reading drive-by media reaction, and they went in phases. The first phase was, oh man, they were so excited, they couldn't see straight, oh my God, there it is, somebody that just gets... And then they realized what had just happened. What had just happened was that the deep state had been admitted to from within the deep state, and that the silent coup to get rid of Donald Trump had been admitted to by somebody claiming to be engaged in the silent coup. And then I started reading drive-by media people who were disgusted because the thing was backfiring. And it's pretty much where it's... Have you noticed, folks, that after each of these events, the Woodward book and then the Woodward book is hitting this week, but there have been some excerpts, but this anonymous piece, nothing changes. And the reason nothing changes is because it isn't really news. It's nothing more than an attempt to change your mind. It's yet another flailing effort by a media, paranoid, fearful that they have lost the ability to manage and shape public opinion. Then we got Barack Hussein who decides to go out and start back on the campaign trail because he was so successful getting Hillary Clinton elected. What people forget is that Obama, as a coattail endorser, is instant death to a candidate. Remember the Democrat convention? There's Obama up there. Got Bill Clinton out in the audience with the daughter Chelsea. And Obama says to Bill and the rest of the audience, Bill, you and I got to admit it, we can't hold a candle to her. There's never been anybody more qualified to be president than Hillary Clinton. And not her, Serena Williams. Nobody been more qualified. Bill, you and I have to admit it. Do you realize how much did they have to pay Obama to get him to say that? Because you know he doesn't believe that. In Obama's narcissistic mind, there's nobody but him in the room of most qualified to be president people. He's in that room all by himself. And yet there he is. And then he goes out on a campaign trail. And he's telling, if you want more of me, if you want my agenda to continue, if you want the third term, then you have to vote for her. What happened? Titanic, there's an iceberg ahead. Didn't matter. Obama wasn't able to bring it home. So now Obama's campaigning, and he's out there, and he's running through these cliches. Do you believe? You remember the Charlottesville thing? The things that upset these people. I was telling somebody last week while all this stuff was being discussed, these people claim to be upset with Donald Trump's morality. They claim that Trump's amorality, lack of morality, or his immorality just is beyond the pale. We can't accept somebody like this in our club. We can't have somebody like this as president. We can't have somebody like this leading the country. This is despicable. This guy has no character. He's ill-spoken. He's ill-mannered. And I'm thinking, well, who the hell are you? You people want anybody who wants to be able to use any bathroom anytime, or you'll shut down a state if you don't get your... You want to tell us your morality is what we ought to follow? Some of the sick perversion you endorse and stand by and try to promote as normal, you people in charge of the degradation of women and African Americans in TVs and movies, you people are carrying the moral banner that we all ought to follow? Where do these people get off? And then Obama's out there talking about this incident that happened in Charleston. Remember that, where we had the competing rallies. We had apparently the Nazis were out there, and then we had what? Who was it? Black Lives Matter or whatever it was out there. And they just can't get over it that Trump wouldn't criticize the Nazis, but he did. He criticized them twice, but in their world, he didn't. In their world, Trump said, no, there's good people in every group, which, by the way, I was always told, being brought up. Anyway, so Obama's out there saying, what's so hard? What's so hard about criticizing Nazis? The stuff these people carry around that eats away at them over Donald Trump. Okay, criticizing Nazis, that's such... It's a no... Everybody in the world does. There isn't anybody supporting Nazis out there, and they're out trying to make a claim that Trump does. You know, Obama's out trying to say that this economy is his. When Barack Obama is the guy who told a bunch of union workers in Indiana that their jobs were gone and never coming back, and to get used to it. And then when Trump was campaigning, claiming to bring these jobs back, here's Obama saying, well, how's he going to do that? You know, it's easy to say, but how are you going to? You just going to wave a magic wand? So here's Obama saying that it's impossible to create our current economy, and now he's out trying to claim credit for it. In the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, Barack Hussein Obama created a massive stimulus package and said it was good. It wasn't. The economy dragged. On the second day, Barack Hussein Obama created Obamacare and said it was good, and the economy sank even lower. On the third day, Barack Hussein O created pallets of cash to Iran. On the fourth day, the Paris Climate Change Accords. And on the fifth day, Barack Hussein O opened the southern border to unaccompanied minors. He said it was all good. None of it was. On the sixth day, Barack Hussein Obama looked at all he had created and saw high unemployment, record food stamp beneficiaries, racial animosity and strife everywhere in this country. He saw high taxes, a stagnant economy, a nation in decline, and Barack Obama smiled. On the seventh day, after promising that Hillary Clinton would win the presidency and that Donald Trump would not, Barack Obama rested. It came to pass that President Trump won. On his first day, President Trump began dismantling all of Obama's works, brick by brick, door jam by door jam, and it was so good, the economy reignited and boomed. Record low African-American unemployment, record low Hispanic unemployment, record African-American job approval for Donald Trump. So now, Barack Obama has returned to claim that everything that's good was his doing, his creation, his legacy. But it was not. It never could be. And it never will be. Amen.
Be prepared to overpower the left with a subscription to the Limbaugh Letter. Each issue arms you with Rush Limbaugh's truth ammo so you can blow liberals' feeble arguments to smithereens. Order today and get Rush's bonus report, The Joy of Conservatism, free. All at rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
Okay, let's go to the phones. I meant to do this about a half hour ago, and then I ran across the Serena Williams and Christine Brennan audio soundbites. I had to squeeze those in. So we're going to start with Anna in Phoenix. Great to have you. Welcome.
Hi, Rush. Missed you last week. I just wanted to say real quick that now that the left has taken 2 years to teach us how we're supposed to treat our president, I think Mr. Obama ought to be careful, because this time I think the gloves are off. We're not going to be afraid of being called racist if we don't believe what he's saying, and hopefully this will get everybody remembering what he did to us.
Well, what do you mean now that we 2 years to know how to treat a president? You're talking about people going out there and protesting Obama?
Well, protesting him and protesting Obama? No, protesting Obama. No, I'm getting myself confused. Trump. They've taught us that we disrespect our president. That's fine. We try to get crimes against our president that he didn't commit. That's fine. We try to convince everybody what a horrible job he's doing, that he's mentally disabled. I think Mr. Obama ought to be careful, because this time I'm not going to be afraid to say, no, he's wrong, and I want some more of Trump.
You mean, are you saying that when Obama was president, you were afraid to be critical because of the allegation?
Yes, I'm saying that because nobody wants to be, I know I'm not a racist, but they just made you feel like you couldn't say anything or else you were.
Well, I got to give you a little hint, Anna. They're going to keep doing it because you're not supposed to have learned here that it's open season on presidents. That would be the wrong lesson. The drive-bys think that you should learn here. You are supposed to continue to revere, to venerate, to adore and celebrate Barack Hussein Obama, and you are to welcome his return to the campaign trail. If you show any disrespect for Obama, they're going to level the same allegations at you. I would just, in this case, wouldn't be worried about it going forward. I get your point. The thing about Obama is that, and it circles back to something that I've kind of gotten redundant saying. They still have no idea. It's beyond tone deaf. I think it's, mental block brought on by supreme arrogance and this sense of overwhelming superiority. They have no idea how trotting Barack Obama out is going to reignite anti-Democrat voters. They have no clue who Trump voters are, who Republican voters are. In their warped world, they think everybody worships Obama. Everybody that counts worships Obama the way they do. They have no idea the backfire they have just created by trotting him out.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
On the cutting edge of societal evolution, America's real anchorman Rush Limbaugh meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. The more this goes on, we lose sight of the real abomination that all of this is. This entire investigation that Mueller is conducting is bogus. It is predicated on nothing but a made-up allegation for which no evidence has ever been found or cited, and therefore the investigation should never have begun. If you ask me, we're now 2 years into this investigation with Mueller's phase of it at 1.5 years or close to it, 16 months, something like that. It is simply unacceptable. It ought not be tolerated that a 16-month investigation that itself is the result of the Obama labor or DOJ and FBI planting evidence and creating false claims about people. We don't know what this is about. What crimes is Donald Trump under investigation of committing? Can somebody tell me, what is the crime Trump's being investigated for committing? There isn't one, folks. There is no crime that has been mentioned as the reason for any of this investigation, even that which preceded Mueller starting. After 2 years of investigating, when there was no crime to begin with, why does this continue? It has no basis in law to continue. It has no basis in evidence to continue. Exactly what is Robert Mueller investigating Donald Trump for doing? We've said this, I don't know how many times. Department of Justice regulations involving a special counsel demand. They require. It isn't a suggestion. There must be, in order to appoint a special counsel, there must be a crime alleged to have occurred. And the special counsel is then given a charge, instructions to investigate that crime. When Mueller was appointed, no crime was specified. As such, what Mueller is conducting is not even a criminal investigation. We have a special counsel who has been allowed to be set up as essentially an ongoing check and balance on a daily basis of the President of the United States. What Mueller is doing is not mentioned in the Constitution. It's not specified. It's not referenced in any way. Our Constitution does not provide a fourth branch of government which does nothing but follow and pass judgment every day on the President of the United States. He runs the executive branch, and there isn't a single person in it who has any power over him. And yet Robert Mueller has been set up as the great overseer who has the guillotine. And he can drop it any day he wants and ruin the Trump presidency. And way too many people have accepted this premise. It is unconstitutional. It is extra-constitutional. There is no crime. Now, after 2 years of an investigation that does not have a crime in it, isn't it time to shut it down? It never should have begun in the first place, and every day it continues is a massive fraud. It's a massive fraud, and it is assault on the Constitution, not to mention the Trump presidency and the executive branch. And it is being sponsored and energized and conducted by underlings in the executive branch at the Department of Justice primarily, with friends and associates in the FBI, working with accomplices in the mainstream media to continue the illusion that some vast crime has occurred here and we just need to keep looking to find it. Well, that's not how it works. No special counsel is given the job and said, go find a crime, except this one, except Robert Mueller. It is not a criminal investigation. That's why there will not be an impeachment. Well, I can't say that. We're talking politics here. There will not be an indictment of the President of the United States. There is no crime. No, I know. No, there was an allegation that Trump colluded with Russia. Well, collusion isn't a crime, and we've gone blue in the face saying so, but that's not even what is being looked at anymore, because if it were, we would have heard evidence, because nobody can stop leaking. We would have had all kinds of evidence, and the media would be doing orgasm after orgasm after orgasm if there were really any proof that it happened, but it didn't. So why is this continuing? It is continuing because it is what it is. It is a coup. And now with that New York Times op-ed, it's not silent. It is an out in the open, admitted to coup to get rid of Donald Trump. It proceeds without any legality. It proceeds without any substantial foundation to it. There's no reason for the Mueller investigation. There is no justifiable reason for Robert Mueller to have an office and a team of anti-Trump investigators with an unlimited budget to go run around and keep ruining people's lives and threatening to ruin the lives of others in order to get somebody to pop up and say, yeah, they know Trump cheated because he colluded with Russia. They haven't even been able to find anybody to do that yet. There isn't anybody willing to be paid enough to lie about it. The best they've got is Bob Woodward and Omarosa, whatever her name is. They don't have jack. But stop and think. There isn't even an answer to a simple question. What is Trump being investigated for? And don't tell me he's being investigated for colluding with Russia, because he's not. They're hoping to find evidence of that, but they haven't been able to because it didn't happen. There is no crime Donald Trump is alleged to have committed here. Meanwhile, we have the Obama Justice Department and the FBI corrupting themselves left and right to try to create the illusion that some crime has taken place here. The thing is, this has been going on for so long that people just accept it. Despite the abomination that it is, despite the illegality that surrounds it and defines it, despite the literal unconstitutionality of it, despite the pure bogus intent, which is to drive a president out of office and to overturn or nullify the results of the 2016 election. It's been going on so long that people have ceased looking at it, if they ever did, for what it really is. But nowhere in our Constitution does it say that we can appoint some guy to sit in daily, permanent judgment of a sitting president and to have at his disposal a guillotine to end that presidency. And that's what Robert Mueller is. And I keep hearkening back. We keep hearing that Mueller is a man of deep integrity, unchallengeable honor. I don't believe it. If he were, none of this would have been happening, and he would have rejected it. Really cared about the law? All these people really care about the law as the backbone of our society, our country, and justice, the rule of law. If they really believed it, this thing would have never gotten off the ground, and after it did, they would have shut it down. The fact that it continues is evidence that it is purely 1,000% political. It's occurring outside the system of justice in this country. It is not warranted. It is not justified. But as I say, the longer it goes on, the less people become sensitive to what it really is and just end up accepting it. That's why I think it's horrible what's happening. Mueller is just running roughshod right through the Constitution, right through the office of the presidency. And for a bunch of totalitarian authoritarians and leaning that way like the Democrats are, a precedent like this, whenever there's a Republican president, they live and die for. If you can get a special counsel appointed when there is no crime, then you can do it again the next time there's a Republican president. It will never happen when there is a Democrat president. Even with clear-cut evidence that crimes are being or have been committed, it will never happen with a Democrat president. So we have a two-tiered system of justice, which destroys our system of justice. Quick timeout. We will continue after this. Don't go away.
Listen to what the left doesn't want you to hear. Rush on the EIB Network.
Okay, back to the phones we go as we have more fun than human beings should be allowed to have. This is Gary in Sussex, Wisconsin. Welcome, sir.
Well, Rush, this is what actually my wife came up with, my wife Beth. She said Hillary did it. She's the one who wrote the letter. One day that she was, Hillary...
Wait. You mean the New York Times op-ed?
Yes.
The anonymous op-ed, supposedly from a Trump administration figure? Think Hillary wrote that?
I think Hillary wrote it. Actually, my wife Beth came up with that. She said that, Hillary still has her security clearance and her keys to the White House when she was co-president back with Bill, back 25 years ago. And she snuck in there one night and was sitting in the Oval Office by the desk, crying her eyes out, saying, "This should have been me. This should be my desk. This should be my office." And I think she grabbed some papers, went through, snooped around, came up with some really good stuff, hoping that they're going to invoke the 25th Amendment on him. You know, most insane people think that other people are insane, that they're the only right,
Wait, hold on, I need to ask you, do you really think this, or are you trying to be clever, host at home?
Well, a little bit of both.
I thought so. I'm glad to hear, because there's no way Hillary wrote this, but you are very clever with your construction here of the possibility.
Now, I do have another comment. Stormy Daniels, she was paid off. Did she ever pay taxes on that money that's supposedly, allegedly, that
I don't know. Even if she didn't, nobody's going to go get her for it. That's not the way to go after Stormy. Did she pay taxes on the bribe? I don't know. That's not the way. Stormy is becoming a left-wing heroine, by the way. She's in a battle here with Serena Williams for the title. And we're tracking that. By the way, there's more on Serena Williams today. Not more on her, there's the way the media is dealing with that. We'll do that in the next hour. Okay, so I succeeded, as the clever host that I am, in elucidating from the caller, securing the caller. He doesn't really believe Hillary wrote the op-ed in the New York Times. She didn't. Whoever wrote this, whoever wrote it, is a millennial. You know, some of the smart money that I saw perusing things, there's some people actually think that Nikki Haley wrote it. Nikki Haley is Trump's ambassador to the United Nations. There's no way Nikki Haley wrote this, because Nikki Haley has written a response to it criticizing it. Nobody would be that double deceptive if she's got any political aspirations beyond this, which she does. There's no way. She might write it, but then she wouldn't double down and write a piece being critical of it. If that ever came out, that's the kind of... bye-bye, rest of career for Nikki Haley. I don't think Nikki Haley wrote it. I stick by the fact that nobody wrote it. I believe the New York Times made it up. I think it's a composite series of opinions from a bunch of people the New York Times have on staff or talk to. I'm not denying that there are saboteurs in the Trump administration. Don't misunderstand. The timing of this, as a prelude to the Woodward screed coming out, and from everything I know, but look at, they're making up quotes. Bob Woodward's partner, Carl Bernstein, still is in hiding. He can't come out and share in the glory because his name was on a story signifying Lanny Davis as an anonymous source. Lanny Davis has now admitted he lied to everybody when he sourced the story originally. I forget what it even was about now, but Lanny has said, sorry, I goofed up. I shouldn't have said it. It wasn't true. Well, CNN's the only outfit that Lanny Davis gave the data to that hasn't withdrawn it or retracted, and that's because they got to protect Bernstein's legacy and reputation. Otherwise, Bernstein would be out there defending Woodward's honor today, but he can't. He's got his own honor to try to cover up. My point is, they make stuff up all the time. Look at all of the stories for a year and a half, supposedly citing anonymous intelligence sources and former U.S. government officials assuring the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, that there was collusion with Russia, and it's only a matter of time before we can release it or something. Folks, they have been making things up for 2 years, 2.5, 3 years on Donald Trump. Why would this be any different? Again, I'm not saying there aren't any saboteurs. Don't miss it. I think there are plenty of them all over the place. Some of Trump's original staffing, as I've said, it's beyond me to make any sense of it. But I think it's the product. I think it's the result of frustration like you and I can't imagine. These people in the media, the Washington elites, what they have given this project everything they've got. The project of getting rid of Trump, overturning the election 2016, getting his approval numbers down so low that they can drive him out of office. They have given everything. They've tried every trick in the book. They've done every trick that's gotten rid of every other Republican, and it hasn't worked. They've run through every piece of ammo in the quiver. Time for something new. Make it up. I don't know if we'll ever know. The only way we will know is if somebody steps forward and claims credit for it. But if it was written by a saboteur in the Trump administration, they're probably not going to want to step forward anytime soon, because the conventional wisdom is it's backfired in the sense that it has given Trump evidence of what he and a bunch of us have been saying, that there is a coup, a silent coup going on to get rid of him, to get him out of office. This kind of proved it. So this person, whoever he or she is, may have stepped in it by actually doing it. They may not come forward. Back in a sec.
The wonder of Rush will continue on the EIB network.
Fastest 3 hours in media, and look at this, 2 of them are already in the can. But we still have one exciting, busy broadcast hour to go. Some more media reaction to the outrageous treatment of Serena Williams The U.S. Open on Saturday. Back in a moment.
After years of hard work, ensure your efforts pay off, literally. Busey promises to make your money work for you. With more than 150 years of strength and service, Busey is the ideal partner to ensure your dreams become reality. Visit Busey.com or stop by one of our many convenient locations for solutions to your banking and wealth management needs. Busey, fulfilling dreams since 1868. Member FDIC.
You're listening to Russia's Week in Review on the EIB Network.
Okay, I want to warn you, ladies and gentlemen, the news today, much of the news today concerns threats and acts of violence by leftists and Democrats directed at Republicans. It's pretty widespread, it's pretty brutal, and I'm going to detail it for you. The two primary media narratives today: Obama is responsible for the great economy, and Trump is responsible for Hurricane Florence. Wait till you hear some of these sound bites. Trump is already being blamed for Hurricane Florence. Trump is being blamed for the lackadaisical recovery. Trump is being blamed for the lack of FEMA attention. Trump is being blamed for what the media says is going to be a horrible response to Hurricane Florence. Trump's even being blamed for the hurricane because he doesn't believe in climate change. And meanwhile, the drive-bys are out trying to say that all this great economic news, which continues to pour in, median household income in the United States is just climbing in almost unprecedented rates. And the media is trying to credit Obama for all of this. So, once again, another fascinating and interesting program ready to unwind before your very eyes and ears. Telephone number, if you want to join us, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. Now, before getting into any of this, there's something that always happens during these hurricanes, and that is that Media Matters for America takes something that I say way out of context, and they tweet it, and then the rest of the drive-bys see it, and then they run with it. And the essence of the Media Matters tweet is that I'm telling everybody to ignore Hurricane Florence, that it isn't going to be very bad, that all these details of the severity, potential damage, are all being made up just to further the climate change agenda. They tweeted that. Of course, the drive-bys, little Brian Stelter at CNN and people at MSNBC are following suit and reporting that that is what I have said. And, of course, I didn't say anything like that. So what I want to do to get started is, since the hurricane is still front and center news, and by the way, well, you just listen. We're going to play a couple of minutes of what I did say yesterday. And I want you, now the reason I'm doing this, by the way, I'm going to get, why do you even waste time reacting? It's not that I'm wasting time reacting to them. I'm trying to arm you with the truth for when you respond to some of this insanity, either on Facebook or on Twitter. I'm trying to arm you with what really happened. I know many of you were here listening yesterday and you heard it, but I want you to hear it again. And keep in mind that what's being said, what's being tweeted by Media Matters and the left, is that I'm telling people this hurricane's not nearly as big as they're saying, and I'm telling people to ignore the warnings because all of this is nothing other than the left trying to hype climate change. Now, you know how things happen in our culture today. People read these lies and things like this, and they tweet them out and retweet them, and people end up believing it. And I just want you to be armed to be able to refute it. So here is the essence, what I said yesterday, which was, I must say, sensitive, in touch, brilliant, analytical, and correct. So here it is. This is how you are now armed to deal with this insanity that, not just about me, but about pretty much anybody here who goes against the leftist conventional wisdom. I'm not making a comment on this hurricane. Everybody understand that? I've got witnesses here. I got people can back me up. Of all the hurricanes that we have lived through here, 2 of them were what we were expecting. The others never got as forceful, damaging, or as big as we were led to believe. Many of them did not hit where we were told they were going to hit. They hit, but not where we were first told. My experience with hurricanes is that they are, by the way, no matter if it's a Category 1, it's still devastating. I don't want anybody to misunderstand me here, but my experience is that the storms, when they finally get to where they're going, are not nearly as big and powerful and strong or as wide as original warnings lead people to believe. And I think part of that is just making sure people are ready. And it's shouting fire in a crowded theater, because even with all the news, there are people that still don't know what's coming their way because they just miss it, don't pay attention. But this one is, as it sits now and as it sat out there, if it is what they're reporting it to be, it's devastating. It's a Category 3 or Category 4. And the worst part of it is, look at Hurricane Hugo. Hurricane Hugo, in a 24-hour period, went from the South Carolina coast all the way up to Canada. This hurricane is not supposed to, in a 24-hour period, isn't going to move 100 miles. It could dump 30 inches of rain on people, if they are right about everything they're saying. There's no place that can handle 30 inches of rain without a bunch of trouble, without a bunch of damage. Everybody's got their eyes on this, especially those that are because when they tell you it's going to stall and dump 30 inches of rain on you, then you have serious decisions to make as to whether you leave or not. And if you stay, where do you go to avoid 30 inches of rain in a relatively short period of time? We just sit here and hope that it's not as bad when it hits, that it's not as big, that it's not as powerful, and it's not as damaging. And that is what I said. Now, during my discussion yesterday, I did mention the fact that over the years, many hurricanes have been hyped because everything in our culture has been politicized, as has weather forecasting. Weather forecasting and the Meteorological Society is practically dominated now by leftist people with a political bent who believe in climate change. And so in many cases, big storms like this are happily accepted because they help prove a political point. If you doubt me on this, let's go to audio soundbite number 2. We got 2 soundbites on this. Is it? Nope, we've got 3 total. This is last night on CNN International's newsroom, and they're talking about Hurricane Florence. The anchor is a guy named John Voss, and his guest is former Democrat candidate for Congress, geologist and executive director of Blueprint Earth, Jess Phoenix. Here's the question and answer first bite.
There is a lot of unusual stuff happening when it comes to the weather. Begging the question, what does climate change have to do with all this? Jess Phoenix is a geologist and executive director of Blueprint Earth, a non-profit dedicated to preserving the Earth's environment. Boy, you got your work cut out for you, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. It's a good time to be in the environmental business.
It's a good time to be in the environmental business. So even though you heard me warn everybody, if this hurricane is exactly what they're saying, it's devastating and don't mess around with it. And you've also heard me say that the left has polluted and corrupted practically everything they've touched, including weather and weather forecasting. And here comes this guy. Now, here's a guy on CNN talking to some guy that runs a nonprofit. Boy, you've got your work cut out for you. What do you mean you got your work cut out for you? What work does a nonprofit have to do? Particularly a nonprofit on climate and the environment. What do they have to do but sit around and watch? Boy, you've got your work cut out for you, don't you? And this guy says, oh, yeah, it's a good time to be in the environmental business. What does that mean? A good time to be in the environment? This guy sounds excited that this hurricane's coming. It's about to hit. He sounds excited that it's big. Executive director of Blueprint Earth, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving the Earth's environment. All right, now, but this continued as the CNN anchor continues to query the director of Blueprint Earth.
This is what life looks like, I guess, on an overheated planet. The important point with all of this, though, is that, climate change didn't cause the hurricanes or the typhoons, but they made them worse, because this is a natural disaster, which is potentially a man-made catastrophe because of the choices we've made.
Right. And
wait a minute, stop. Whoa. Cue it back to the top there, Friday. Did you notice this guy says, look, climate change didn't cause the hurricanes, right? Then at the end of the question, it is potentially a man-made catastrophe. It is not man-made. We cannot make a hurricane, and we can't stop a hurricane, and we can't redirect a hurricane. We cannot weaken a hurricane. We cannot strengthen a hurricane. We can't do anything with hurricanes but try to adapt to them and deal with them as they happen. Okay, I just had to point that out. He says, climate change didn't cause, but this is a man-made catastrophe because of the choices we've made. So here's the whole bite again.
This is what life looks like, I guess, on an overheated planet. The important point with all of this, though, is that, climate change didn't cause the hurricanes or the typhoons, but they made them worse, because this is a natural disaster, which is potentially a man-made catastrophe because of the choices we've made.
Right. And what we're doing is interfering with the way the jet stream operates. I mean, the jet stream is the current of air that actually goes from west to east. And that's why flights going west to east take a lot less time than going east to west here in the States. Normally, that jet stream would push a lot of these storms back out into the open ocean. But now the jet stream's up further north than it was before. And that's because the tropical regions are actually expanding.
This is absolute BS. They get on my case for talking about weather when I'm not a weather expert. This babe, it sounds like a babe, pardon my hearing if this is a guy. I'm not, Jess, who knows? But the tropics are expanding because of climate change. That's not what's going on here. Even I, not a weather expert, understand the concept of the Atlantic high. The Atlantic high is a high-pressure area over the Atlantic Ocean, and it sits there. It's annual. It sits there, and some years it moves, and some years it doesn't. Where it happens to be right now is akin to planting a concrete barrier in the way of this hurricane. It has nothing to do with the tropics expanding. It has to do with general meteorology and physics. There's a high-pressure area. Hurricanes are low-pressure area. High pressure is going to defeat low pressure every time, particularly the size of this high-pressure area. This hurricane cannot overcome it. It's high-pressure areas that steer hurricanes. If the Atlantic high were not there, or if it were further out over the Atlantic, this hurricane would have turned already and been on its way over to the UK or in that direction and would have missed the United States. The reason this hurricane is making a beeline and the reason it hasn't changed much at all is because of the Atlantic high. It has nothing to do with the tropics moving the jet stream. So now we have the power to move the jet stream, which, of course, she says goes west to east, but this hurricane's going east to west, and, of course, that doesn't work out because this is gibberish, folks. This is full-fledged gibberish that CNN put on television last night as expertise. And I don't know what they're talking about, neither the host nor the guest. But we're not finished, because we have one more soundbite, and that is, whose fault is all of this? The question from the anchor is this: Trump has rolled back Obama-era regulations. It would be one thing if the U.S. government did nothing to fight climate change. It's quite another to see it actively working to make climate change worse. So that's the question. Trump is making climate change worse because we backed out of Paris, which had no teeth and did nothing. There isn't a single climate change accord which would do anything to lowering temperatures because it's not possible to do it. But yet, because we're pulling out of Obama regulations, Trump is now actively working to make the environment worse, actively working to make it hotter, actively working to make climate change worse. And here's the learned answer.
We have a history of Republican presidents actually taking environmental action. You had Nixon created the EPA.
Yeah.
You have Ronald Reagan dealing with chlorofluorocarbons. You had George W. Bush, who actually dealt with cap and trade to put in limits so that we could help deal with these sort of challenges that we're facing. And Trump is, I'd say, the first president in recent memory, probably ever, observer who has actively worked against a conservative principle, which is to conserve the natural environment.
Right. Again, a total incorrect misdefinition of conservative and conserve. And this is never what they mean when they start ripping conservatives anyway. But I mean, this is classics. In the meantime, you have all of this, genuine ignorance. Neither of these two people have the slightest idea what they're talking about. And it's all over primetime television, even though it's CNN and nobody saw it. In the meantime, they're out there saying that I am telling people to ignore the hurricane because it's just a bunch of hype to promote climate change, which is what this babe did. It's a great time to be environmental business. What the hell does that mean? So do not doubt me on any of this. And you think this is bad? Wait till you hear. We've got people blaming Trump for the response to Hurricane Florence. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. This is Karen. Great to have you here.
Hi, Rush. It's great to get you finally.
Thank you.
My husband and I are traveling through Pennsylvania now. We went on an anniversary trip for 41 years.
Wow.
And we're headed back to North Carolina because of the storm. But, I heard that guy call about, I think, from Murphy, North Carolina, about the people not be able to get out for the storm. And I just think that you ought to do a PSA announcement for them. And the liberals ought to send a bus out to pick them up because they have buses readily available for voting. And they pick up voters. And
I love that. That's why I wanted to get you on here real quick. Stop and think that everybody, for the first time in our memory, what about people that can't afford, because of our bad economy, who can't afford to evacuate? They don't have the money for a hotel or to buy gasoline. What are those people supposed to? And her point is, well, the Democrat Party has no problem getting people to the polls. Just have the Democrat Party send a bunch of buses out to help people evacuate. I love the idea, which reminds me, there is a story, whatever, something dramatic has been learned here. During the 2016 elections, Google was working hand in hand with Hispanic television networks and Hispanic Get Out the Vote programs to get Hispanics to the polls on Election Day 2016. Google. It's one thing for Hispanic special interest groups to be trying to get Latinos to the polls. That's understandable. And even for Telemundo and all these other, we know that the media is part of the Democrat Party. For Google was instrumental in organizing and leading the effort to get Hispanics to the polls in 2016. They made a big mistake. They assumed that just because people were Hispanic, they were going to vote Hillary. 29% of the people that Google and the Hispanic vote groups got to the polls, 29% voted for Trump. It backfired on them. More on this when time permits.
The truth lives here. Rush on the EIB Network.
So now people are confused between a jet stream and the Gulf Stream. The jet stream is a flow of air at rapid speed at altitude, and it does go around the globe from east to west, or west to east, rather. The Gulf Stream is water. The Gulf Stream is off the coast of Florida, and when you get out to it, you can see that it basically runs north to south or northwest to southeast. And the Gulf Stream is actually like a conveyor belt. It runs all the way very close to the UK on the surface and then comes as a conveyor belt back to Florida underneath it. And it is crucial. The Gulf Stream is crucial in keeping temperatures in the UK moderate. It limits their winters because it carries warm air with it on the surface. And, of course, there was a report not long ago that we were destroying the Gulf Stream because of climate change. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Gulf Stream is as strong and powerful as ever. The jet stream, it alternately dips south, stays in Canada depending on winter or summer, but it has nothing to do with the tropics and climate change for this hurricane.
You're listening to Rush's Week in Review.
Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have, and I do it every day. Rush Limbaugh. And I've been doing this for a long time, folks. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. Washington Post lead editorial. Lead editorial headline: another hurricane is about to batter our coast. Trump is complicit. I am worried. I have to tell you, folks, I'm really, really worried. The left is going insane. Traditional Democrat institutions, which only recently have tracked into radical communism, socialism, and liberalism, were always dependable in a sense that they were not destructive of the institutions and traditions that feature the founding of the country. They've been trending in that direction, but however solid elements of the Democrat Party used to be, I don't see any evidence. They are literally losing their minds, and it's very troublesome. As I say, much of the news today concerns threats and acts of violence by leftists directed at Republicans. You have the Washington Post. Now, I understand, and I'm not naive, I'm not suggesting that these outfits like the Post and the New York Times have been responsible, trustworthy, and all that, but they had not been radicalized. They were always liberal, but they had not become radicalized. That all began with the election of Obama, the radicalization of the Democrat Party. And it happened in the undertows, and it had happened in the underbellies, and the parts of the party that you didn't see, including on college campuses or college campi. But now it's right out in the open. You get a headline here: another hurricane is about to batter our coast. Trump is complicit. Another headline: if Trump cares about Hurricane Florence, his policies don't show it. If Trump cares, somebody at the Washington Post seriously believes that Donald Trump doesn't care about this. And because Donald Trump doesn't care about this, he actually intends to stand by, watch destruction take place. And he doesn't care. It's absurd. The problem is that this does represent a significant body of thought throughout the country now. It is a rising tide of, I think, genuine insanity on the part of more people than we can count or tabulate. This radicalism that we're seeing on the left is rapidly becoming authoritarianism or totalitarianism, and it manifests itself with censorship, weaponizing government agencies, the mass production and distribution of propaganda, all while accusing Trump of that. They accuse Trump of leading a dangerous authoritarian regime. Yet it's Trump who is trying to defang the administrative state. It is Trump who's trying to unravel it, unwind it, and get rid of it. It is Trump who is trying to end this totalitarian tendency or this authoritarianism throughout our government and country. It is Trump demanding investigations of the deep state where all of this, much of this is happening. It is Donald Trump that's championing and standing up for the little guy for the first time in a long time. The people who make this country work. Donald Trump is actually enacting policies that are to benefit them. And because he's doing so, he has become enemy number one. Well, not just that. Of course, there are other reasons why they hate his guts. But it's Donald Trump who has put the country back to work. It's Donald Trump who has reduced dependency on food stamps and welfare in general. It's Trump who's demanding a one-tier justice system, justice for all. We have a supposed blue wave on the way where these radical leftists are going to supposedly take control of the U.S. House. Now they're going to take control of the Senate. CNN's running polling data saying that 47% of the American people want Trump impeached. That more people approve of Robert Mueller than approve of Donald Trump. What do we do with this? Do we just discard it and say, I'm not going to believe this, it's CNN? It doesn't matter what we do. The point is, that stuff is going to end up on Twitter and Facebook, and it's going to get amplified, and you're going to have a host of people who will believe it. Then you add people who want to be hip and cool with whatever they think is hip and cool. They'll sign on to that and also say they believe it. But a headline, another hurricane is about to batter our coast, and Trump is complicit. By the way, one of the things that, Trump yesterday was talking about how great the United States response was to the hurricane in Puerto Rico. The media's outraged. The media can't stand it. The media is livid. How dare Trump say that our response was magnificent? It was, and so was our response to Hurricane Katrina, despite all the conventional wisdom. You know what's been found in Puerto Rico? A massive stockpile of bottled water has been found 1 year after Hurricane Maria there. Hundreds of thousands of water bottles meant for victims of Hurricane Maria are still sitting at a Puerto Rico airport nearly a year after the storm. And there are photos showing the bottles in boxes covered in a blue tarp on a runway. You may have seen these photos because they're all over social media. Now, how does this happen? Trump didn't squander that water. We